Let's talk about ventricular rhythms now. We've covered in multiple sections the information about our normal conduction pathway. In the heart, we have a SA node at the top in the right atrium, communicating then to the AV node there and down the bundles and into the Purkinje fibers to allow that complex to have a nice, smooth transition throughout all of the cardiac tissue. In a ventricular rhythm, you do not have a P wave because the SA node is not functioning. So when you look at your complex, that P wave that's on that complex here on the bottom right, that does not exist. We also do not have our AV node. So we have no conduction coming from the upper parts of the heart, which leaves our ventricles as the sole pacemaker left. This is the heart trying to save itself and really generate an impulse and some kind of perfusing rhythm. It's very inefficient and doesn't look very pretty on the strips either. When we look at the strips, you'll see wide and bizarre complexes, but they are regular. So please make sure that when you're looking at these rhythms, you'll note that yes, indeed, they are regular because it is a single impulse. Some tissue. Now, please don't marry where I have put my energy generator there. It could be anywhere in the heart, but there's a single focus in the ventricular tissue that is beginning to generate those impulses and then shoots that electricity on a cell to cell communication, which leads to those wide and bizarre complexes. I really like using road analogies when I'm talking about the conduction system in the heart. If we start at the SA node in the atria and communicate over to the AV node down the bundle and into the Purkinjes, this is like taking I-90 into Chicago and hopefully not during rush hour. But yes, in general, taking I-90, that's a straight shot. We can get there in a fairly decent amount of time. Well, if you're in a ventricular rhythm, we end up with a very different picture. So now I have the pulse being generated from some section in the ventricles, and that leads to this very wide and bizarre complex, like taking bypass or Highway 20 or any two-lane road into Chicago from Rockford. Now, certainly, you're going to see some beautiful landscapes, maybe some cows, but you are not going to quickly get to Chicago. We also have a rate defining uh, word next to the rhythm, just like we do in junctional. So if we have a rate of 20 to 40, that's the inherent rate of the ventricles. And so that is referred to as an idioventricular. If we have a rate that meets our qualifications, so we have a regular rhythm, a wide QRS complex, but our rate is above 40, we're now saying that that's accelerated above its inherent rate. So any rate 100 or less, but not part of that inherent rate of 20 to 40, so that the accelerated is somewhere between 40 and 100, then we get this accelerated idioventricular. Now, VTach is any tachycardic rhythm that comes out of the ventricles with a rate over 100, but that information is in a different section. If we use the hash mark method to determine the rate on this strip in front of us, you'll see between those three hash marks, there is 5 complexes. Now, that last fifth complex doesn't make it into the strip completely. It is kind of cut off here. So I would estimate the rate of this rhythm is somewhere around 45, 47, something like that. So since I have that rate, I have a regular rhythm with a wide and bizarre complex. So then I would say this is an idioventricular rhythm, faster than 40, but under 100, a regular rhythm that's coming out of the ventricles. Again, if that rate is below 20 to 40, that inherent rate, you could have something where the patient's rate and rhythm is moving toward an agonal rhythm. So you could have someone call a rate below 20, still a ventricular rhythm, but it's really not, it's losing some energy. So if we go through all of our questions, we have a regular rhythm. The inherent rate is 20 to 40. If it's above that, it's accelerated idio. There are no P waves, which means I have no PR interval because I can't have a PR interval if I have no P. And then that complex is wide and bizarre. If you'll remember when we talked about what a narrow complex is for a QRS, it's supposed to be under 0.12. So anything that is over 0.12 or more than 3 little boxes, then we call that complex wide. And a wide complex means delayed conduction through the ventricles. So let's practice. Here's another rhythm strip here. Is that regular? Yes, that's definitely regular. If we go R to R with our calipers, we'll see that that's a very regular rhythm. That rate, if we assume that this is a 6-second strip, we have 4 complexes, 4 times 10, a rate of 40. We do not have any P waves, which means I have no PR interval. And the QRS, depending on where you measure it, because honestly, that little hitch there behind the QRSs, there's my little marker, that little hitch there, that might actually be some kind of extra activity or something. Don't really know. But no matter where you measure, if I do the shortest possible measurement there to the J point, that's still 0.2 or possibly even more, depending on how we determine what that little hitch behind the QRS is. So the interpretation of this rhythm, if we have a regular rhythm with a rate of 40, no P waves, no PR interval, and a QRS greater than 0.2, we're going to call this idioventricular. Let's look at a couple of more. This first rhythm strip here, is that regular? Why, yes. If you do your measurements from R to R, definitely yes. Sorry that my little drawing is a little haphazard there. Do we have P waves? No, there are no P waves there. So this does not start with an impulse from the top of the heart at all. And my complex, my QRS complex is very wide, depending on where you say your J point is. It's at least 0.20. So this first strip here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a rate of 80, drawing with a mouse. And I have a wide complex that is regular. So this is an accelerated idio. Now on the lower strip here, we have 1, 2, 3 complexes within those 3 hash marks. So I have a rate of 30. It is regular, even though I have 3 complexes, determine regularity, and a wide QRS complex. So we have all of the components to call this idioventricular rhythm. Idioventricular rhythm is considered a lethal rhythm on our final exam and in most textbooks. So you'll need to not miss this one. Learn those components well of a wide complex, regular rhythm, rate between 20 and 40. Those are your ventricular rhythms.